Hey everyone, Terms here with another video. I wanted to discuss some hacks that I like to use as a mage when I am speedrunning and playing on Turtlewell. So one of the big things that I like to do is, I've talked about before that I use simple action sets to set up my bars. One of the big things I do is I have a default bar that is used for when I am just not in any runs. And that way I don't trigger any consumes, I don't make any mistakes. And a lot of this is applied to the way my interface is set up. So for example, if I swap into Arcane spec, this is typically what my bars will look like right here. And when I want to go into a different spec, what I like to do is, if it's in a run, let's say it's Kara 40, we swap specs after Gnarl Moon, right as it dies. And we don't sit around and wait. So if we're out of mana, we're technically screwed. You lose damage, your output is just not going to be there. So what we do is we drop a Brainwasher and we reset our talents. And first of all, I would be under Brainwasher 1, as you can see here. This is the default set that I have. The simple action sets by default has a setting where it saves the order of your Brainwasher in there. So let's say I was in this set by default in a run. If I wanted to switch to Frost spec, which is what I switched to, I reset my talents for the cost of the 5 gold. And then what I do is I click on this macro here, which does the following. It does a command for an add-on called Talent Saver, which is over here. And you can see I have 3 talents here. I have Arcane Frost and Fire for raid. It says /talents load for Talent Saver, and it references Terms Frost raid, which you can see here. Then it does /item rack equip Frost. In here on my item rack, there is a Frost set that I'm already wearing. So let's just say I was wearing my haste set for Arcane. Then it does /SAS for simple action sets swap to Brainwasher 2. Well, number 2 is my Frost spec. Number 2 in here is my Frost bars. So if I click on this right now, because my talents aren't filled, watch what happens. So not only does it change my gear for me, but it also fills in my talents without having to actually click it manually, which would take a lot of time. My bars, though, are not set, but I keep spamming to set it up. And both the Arcane bars for Brainwasher 1 and the Frost bars for Brainwasher 2, both bars have these 2 macros in the same positions so that I can keep spamming it to load my bars. So in a real environment, I would click on the 5 gold reset and then spam the button 3 times while moving, and everything would get set up and I'd be ready to go. So let's go back to Arcane and let's take a look at what I can do here. There it is, automatic set. So let me get the full mana and I'll show you some other cool things. Okay, so let's talk about sound effects with Doiteauras. If I cast Rupture and go into missiles, let's reset Rupture, because what you just noticed is I have a custom sound that tells me when Rupture comes off cooldown. Obviously, I can be looking for my cooldowns, but it's easier if I just can hear something as well. Because if I hear it,
cast Rupture,
then I can actually make the adjustment to cast it as soon as possible. This might get annoying over time, but it is a good way to have an indicator of when something changes. Because sometimes you're busy, you're moving around, there's a lot of things happening. You don't know what's going on.
Cast Rupture.
So that's one thing that I did. Now, let me just drop combat and switch to Frost, and I'll show you some other things I did with this sound effect too. Okay, so for Frost spec, there's very similar things that occur here. So if I use Ice Barrier, in 30 seconds this will alert me that Ice Barrier is off cooldown. If I cast Frost Nova, it's going to tell me that Flash Freeze is active.
Flash Freeze.
And you'll notice I'm able to respond to that accordingly. But do it again.
Barrier.
With using Cold Snap, my barrier came back up. And that's just a normal Icicles cast on accident. So when I use Nova again,
Flash Freeze,
it'll tell me that Flash Freeze is active. So if we go into Doiteauras with the DA command, and I go to Group 1, you can see that I have Flash Freeze right here. And if I look at it, it's an aura that's found when it's active, in combat or out of combat. It's on me, it glows, it shows the remaining seconds left, and then it has a sound called Flash Freeze.
Flash Freeze.
And that way it tells me when it's active. But you'll probably also notice, because that's the one down here,
Flash freeze.
that there's a larger one. I'm still tinkering with this, but I wanted a larger version so I can actually see it. Because if I'm busy moving around, especially in Kara 40, there's a lot of movement. There's no time to stop. I sometimes delay it for 2-3 seconds without noticing it. And I have to really be on the ball here. So I have to make sure there's a sound attached to it so I can hear it and see it. Now, I haven't actually tested this fully to see if it's something that will actually make a difference. But some of you might respond better to auditory things than visual things. And that's really important when it comes to wanting to improve your output, because you, as a player, you as a human, you function differently than the guy beside you. No one is the same. There's similar patterns, but no one is ever the same. So you have to figure out what works best for you psychologically. So on top of this discussion, I actually have a couple other things here. You can see there's a giant Elixir poison resistance here. This is a really big hack that I like for when I'm in Nax or whenever I need to, use an Elixir. Most people, they probably macro this stuff, but you can see my bars are kind of like they're pretty full. And obviously I can remove things, but this is just the interface I'm used to. And typically when you are doing something over and over and over again, changing one little thing can sometimes be a bigger deal than it really is. So for me, I made an Elixir poison resistance pop up that appears when I get poison charge from the Necro Stalkers in Naxxramas. And so the way it works is, it is an item. It is my Elixir poison resistance. I have it in my backpack. This will appear when I'm in combat and out of combat. When I click on the icon, it will use the item, and it'll show the usability when it's not on cooldown. It'll glow, right? And then it'll have a sound effect called, well, it's using flurry time. Actually, it should not even have a sound effect, but I am making one that's going to say, it's like the Bigwigs one that says remove poison. For now, it has flurry time, which is for Juju Flurry.
Flurry time.
And again, just tinkering around with stuff. But the big thing is there is a condition here. So it'll only show up and appear when it finds on the player, meaning me, poison charge, which is what the Necro Stalkers use. They charge, they give you the debuff, and it's called poison charge. And you can apply this to other things too, because there's other poisons that you get where you can remove this from the, let's say the golems before Grobulus, where they do a poison volley. I don't have that one actually programmed in, so sometimes I have to manually look for it. So that is everything for the Doiteaura's angle for what I wanted to share in this video. The last thing, it's quite minor, but I made a macro that does /use for all the gems I have, because I was typically just having them all on my bar, and from time to time I would just click them, which is really slow and clunky, whereas my Mana Ruby uses a keybind. So I'm going to use this instead and set this macro up and make sure that my bars are appropriately set. There it is. Save this as Brain Washer 2. Done and done. And so that way I can use this macro and it will use my gems in order of availability, because I usually only have the ruby, the citrine, and the jade. And so I'm going to test this out, see how it works, and go from there. And that's basically it. These are the things I wanted to share in this video. These are just some very minor hacks I use when I'm playing Mage. There's a lot more that I could talk about, but for now, this was just a little bit of an update for those of you that are interested in learning more. So make sure you stay around, make sure you subscribe, and I'll be posting and sharing more videos very soon. See you next time.